This is Hog Farmer Chris from the Hog Farmers Charitable Foundation. And before you start listening to Red Zone in the Lab, check out our Amazon Smile, a simple way to support the Hog Farmers Charitable Foundation every time you shop, and it's no cost to you.
Welcome to a brand new season of the Red Zone in the Lab podcast, where nothing is off the table. We will be discussing entrepreneurship, education, Black history, health, movies, family, and of course, sports. So do yourself a favor, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow on all social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, you can always visit us at redzoneinTheLab.com.
We're back! Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.
Welcome back. This is Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and we're back with another pregame in the lab. And in the lab today, Manny Maxwell, Cleveland Browns, this Sunday, 1 o'clock. Battle. We got some couple things going on at FedEx this week where we are unveiling our new mascot. We're honoring the Hogs, and there's no secret that it's going to be a hog or whatever right now. So Manny, what's good, man? Thank you again for joining, man. He was in the lab earlier this year, man. I appreciate you for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Deuce. I mean, I remember that back in June. I was a very excited young Browns fan back in the day, man. And I heard myself say, like, depending on how long, I was just listening to it again, and I was like, depending on how long Deshaun plays, we might be 14-3 or 13-4. And I'm like, oh man. I was like, I gotta admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. I was wrong.
Yeah, man. Let's get right into it. The quarterback situation. So we found out what Deshaun's suspension was going to be, and you all started off with Jacoby Brissett. How did that turn out for the Browns fans going with Brissett? Was it more of a surprise because he was playing pretty good at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, it was. We wanted comparable quarterback play. That's what we wanted this year, and we weren't sure if we were going to get that with Jacoby Brissett. And Miami fans were in the Twitter spaces. That Twitter has this function where everybody can come together and a bunch of people just talk to each other live and from other fan bases and things like that. And Miami fans were like, Jacoby Brisket isn't anything. You know, they're calling him Brisket rather than Brissett, and then making fun of him the whole nine. And so we didn't know what to expect with Jacoby Brissett, right? I mean, you knew you had a good quarterback when he played with with Indianapolis and the Colts. Took that team to the playoffs, and honestly, that's the kind of Brissett we were hoping we were going to get. We were not sure. We knew he wasn't going to be Deshaun, and we were just asking for him to not turn the ball over like Baker Mayfield did a lot in 2021. But man, oh man, Jacoby Brissett came out and played extremely well.
He was balling.
Better than he was crazy. Top 7 in QBR and every major statistical category for quarterbacks. He was guaranteed top 15 in yards and completion percentage, top 10 in that. And it's like, man, we're getting top 10 quarterback play out of a quarterback, which we didn't expect to get. Yet this team is still bad. I just can't. You can't make it up. You cannot make this up. Whether you want to blame it on injuries or blame it on whatever, it's just that the season really went downhill.
Did you want to go back to Deshaun once he was activated?
That's a very good question. That is a very good Deuce. You always come with a great question. That is a fantastic question because from the outside looking in, a lot of other fan bases were like, "Well, you're probably not going to get this type of quarterback play out of Deshaun right away. So why don't you just keep with Jacoby? You know what I mean? Why not? I mean, the division at that time looked, still in grasp, winnable from some aspects, and from some crazy fans might tell you that, but honestly, it was never really in question for me personally, and I think the front office would tell you the same thing. When you pay a guy $280 million guaranteed, you don't. When he's active to play, he's going to play. He's going to play, and he has to play. And honestly, a lot of Browns fans didn't want to admit this in the beginning of the year, but when we heard 11 games, when we heard an 11-game suspension, because we were all thinking 3, maybe 6, some people were even saying none at all. I was even saying that in the podcast earlier in June with you in Red Zone in the Lab. But when we heard 11, we were like, man, oh man, the season might be chalked. I mean, we could talk about it. We could talk about what we win. We could talk about, the season might be over, honestly. But the 6 games, fans have to admit that these 6 games are basically an extended preseason for Deshaun Watson. I mean, once he came in, you got to throw him in there. You have to have him replace Jacoby Brissett because no matter how the season goes, it's a preseason. He finally gets the regular season playbook, and a lot of things that Kevin Stefanski was working on and switched from the preseason. I mean, obviously. It's going to change midway through the season, depending on personnel and rookies, and seeing how David Bell, rookie wide receiver, would be implemented. See which players made strides and things like that. Things are going to change in your playbook. So, 6 games, it was always going to be Deshaun was coming in, no matter how well Jacoby played. But he played very well, very well.
He played very well. Yeah, so let's talk about Deshaun, and since he came back to Texans game, which I thought was crazy. I actually thought they was going to somehow try to flex that game and make it really, but they didn't, right? So it wasn't like a big hoopla as I kind of expected it to be. You kind of didn't even realize that it was happening. But since he's been back, how would you kind of, look at his play? Is it rust? Do you believe that he can get back to prior to like 2018 and prior, or do you think this Deshaun's going to be like a long road ahead for the Browns?
Yeah, I want to say so bad. I wanted to think that Deshaun was going to come out here and play like he was like 2017, 2018 Deshaun Watson. I really did. Like a part of me really wanted that to happen. But if you ask me with some truth serum and say, man, what do you expect of Deshaun? I mean, I would have been like, I don't expect too much, right? You know what I mean? But we're not going to say that as Browns fans. We're not going to say that whatsoever. We wanted him to go out and ball. But again, we got exactly what we thought that you would get. And most people were saying it over and over. Deshaun's going to have some rust. He's going to have some rust. But we as Browns fans, we weren't really listening to that. We wanted him to go out and throw for 300 yards. We were like, oh, he played in the preseason. He was in OTAs. He was in training camp. He was in this, that, or the other. There's no way he's not going to come out and just throw on his old team in Houston. But he came out and it was just like, man, he threw that one interception over the middle to Pitre. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, but again, it's that rust. It's getting back into game speed, getting back into players chasing you to actually tackle you and can really hit you in practice. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it was no better way to start his comeback, so to speak, versus a team that it was an emotional importance, right? There's an emotional, that's a mental factor, playing against people who are like booing you and your old fans and all that other stuff. And then there's just that physical factor of having to move out of the pocket and watch defenses fly and merge all over the place. So that was just a great game overall, because the Texans, they're just not that good of a football team. They're, in my opinion, they're the worst football team in the national football. So for me, it was just a great situation for Deshaun to knock off some rust, make some mistakes. He threw an interception. I think that he handed the ball off, and then he had a little bit of trouble reading some defenses and things like that. But also he got his first 9-yard rush and got hit. I'm like, throw your interception, get hit, get sacked. Get all that out of the way versus a bad team. And they were up 5-0 at one point at the game. And we were like, it was like, I don't care. We're still going to win. It doesn't matter. The fans had that kind of confidence as being Browns fans. So that's why I was like, you know what? Get all of that out versus the Houston Texans. Next week is the Cincinnati Bengals. And so, that's why I was like, hey, I didn't expect too much out of Deshaun, if you ask me truthfully, but we're getting exactly what we thought we would get out of Deshaun Watson.
Has he gotten better?
He has. He in every statistical category since Houston, then playing Cincinnati, then playing Baltimore, he has progressed in whether it be completion percentage, touchdown or turnover ratio, whether it be QBR, whatever you want to talk about, everything has been increasing. The last game versus Saints, there was some regression. There was no touchdown passes. There was an interception. A lot of fans are going to chalk that up to weather, and a lot of people in spaces are going to chalk that up to weather. And I'll be honest with you, even I was saying it, but I'll be honest on this on Red Zone and Live. I'll be honest, it wasn't weather. I think that does it have a part to play? Wide receivers' hands get colder, things like that. Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, I just do believe that it was scheme, and the Saints ran it all over us, and Kevin Stefanski has an offensive play sheet that helps him get a lead and retain a lead rather than coming back from one. So when they were just marching it down the field, it was just like you got to force things, and things get really dicey at that point. So, he has been regressing for 3 games. This last one was a little bit of a kind of bump in the road, but hey, FedEx Field's going to be 60 degrees on Sunday on New Year's Day. So I'm hoping Deshaun has a great game.
That's what I was kind of saying, man. It's going to be the game we see 2018 Deshaun Watson.
I hope so.
Yeah, man. But Kareem Hunt,
yes.
Where's he at right now? Of course, he got the contract stuff, and he's trying to look to his future. A lot of things happen leading up to the regular season. Where is his mindset on this team? Because it looks like his numbers are a little down. I think he's almost at 600 yards rushing, but his YPC is down. But his carries is up, which is kind of weird. And we know how teams treat running backs on their last year they deals.
Oh yeah. They what a lot of NFL teams do with their running backs in the last season, they try to get they're trying to squeeze as much as they possibly can out of them, because they know they're probably not going to resign them unless you are a top 4, top 5 type running back like we did. You see your Nick Chubb, you see your Derrick Henrys, you see your CMCs. That's kind of what you're gonna get. But with Kareem Hunt, that's why he wanted a contract extension before the season, because he knew with Jacoby Brissett being the quarterback that there was going to be a lot of, work on the running back room, whether it be your Nick Chubb, your D'Ernest Johnsons, your Kareem Hunts. He's like, you know what? Well, this is the last year of my deal. I want to get compensated. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. And he's like, well, the Browns front office is like, well, not yet. You're a hometown kid. You went to Toledo. We'll get you your money. Don't worry. This or the other. We'll take care of you. And so it kind of dwindled down a little bit. And I think a lot of players kind of didn't voice their concerns until just seeing how Deshaun would play out later on in the year. So we used Kareem Hunt a lot when Jacoby was under center. We used him in a lot of shotgun packages and things like that. And he took a lot of carries. That's why you're seeing the carries are a little bit up and a little bit high, just because a lot of them are just more so in situations where, all right, let's not put Nick Chubb out there all the time and overuse him, because you're kind of seeing the same thing. It's unfortunate, but with Jonathan Taylor, with Indianapolis, I mean, he had a fantastic year last year, but they're overusing him. You keep going to the well and it's just dry. You don't have any backup running backs that are sufficient enough, and the Browns see that. And the Browns are one of the only teams in the league who have a fantastic starting running back, but have comparable running back play in the room on the number 2 slot in the depth chart that can come in and say, hey, let's take a lot of carries. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of Kareem Hunt getting some high carry usage, but not a lot of yards, because they're using him in third and long situations and second and long situations. And it's getting really weird with the play calling from Kevin Stefanski. I'll admit that. But I don't think he's going to be back next year, to be completely honest with you. I don't think he's going to be back in Cleveland next year. I think that's one of if he comes back, that's fantastic, but it's one of those things where I think that he wants his money. He's going to get his money, and a team is going to play handsomely for him. But he's been a great part of the Browns so far, so can't complain too much.
Do you sit back and say, man, these walls just need something? Feel like it's time to freshen up your place with something new? If your answer is yes, then it's time to call Rob of Lewis Paints Plus, the accent wall expert. Rob will even give you a free estimate on how he can transform those boring walls in your home. To book today, call 240-418-5241 or reach out on Instagram at Lewis Paints Plus. And for 10% off, tell him Red Zone sent you.
on the offensive side of the ball, what are some impact players that can help you pull this victory out on Sunday?
It starts and ends with Nick Chubb. And I hate saying that because I'm a big proponent of wide receivers. I love flashy. I love the Patrick Mahomes-esque. I love the Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson. I loved Oregon's offense in college with the Chip Kelly era. Just spread them out and everything was fun that way. I love that. The run and gun, the ground and pound game is not something that doesn't appeal to me, but it's Nick Chubb, right? I mean, it's Nick Chubb going against that defensive line, that nasty defensive line of the Washington Commanders. Jonathan Allen, shout out to the back-to-back Pro Bowler, Deron Payne, and then you got Chase Young potentially coming back, and Montez Sweat. I mean, that's just a nasty defensive line that you have to go up against. But it's just Nick Chubb. He has to be able to run the ball on this defense so that Deshaun Watson can potentially get the play action going. So if we get Nick Chubb going, he has 4.9 yards of carry right now. It's every time he's touching the ball, he's getting basically 5 yards. So if we can get that going in this nice weather, I think you'll start to see the playbook open up. And since we have no choice of making the playoffs, you're going to see some crazy plays. I'm telling you that right now. You're going to see some jet sweeps on the offensive side of the ball. You're going to see some crazy go routes with Amari Cooper. And you're going to see some balls thrown downfield. But at the same time, they're going to try to set that up because this is going to be the offense of 2023 for the Cleveland Browns. It's going to be an air raid offense, but you're going to see that air raid come out more sort of the end of the game where everybody's tired because they've been chasing around the tree trunk legs of Nick Chubb all game. So Nick Chubb's going to be the most important part of that offense, and then it's Deshaun Watson.
So we know who Amari Cooper is, right? We've seen him for years. But DPJ seems to be having some sort of a kind of breakout year this year. Tell us a little bit about him and the type of impact he can bring to the game.
Absolutely. So DPJ is honestly a very serviceable wide receiver. I was very impressed with the leap that DPJ took, but I was impressed, but also not like it was something kind of expected. You hoped that he would get better with Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, you hope that he would get better with comparable quarterback play, and you saw that with Jacoby Brissett because Jacoby Brissett wasn't turning the ball over that much. And so if you put the ball in the hands of your playmakers, such as a DPJ, because he's a deep threat kind of guy, can really go up there and get the ball. I think that that's something you kind of expect out of Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I was impressed by it. I do think that he's not ready for the number one spot yet as wide receiver number one. Can he get there? Yes, but I do believe he's one of the, in my opinion, one of the best wide receiver twos in the NFL. He's a definitely top 10 wide receiver two, if that makes sense. I hope that I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying he's like a top 10 wide receiver, but he's a top 10 wide receiver two, in my opinion. He's a great number two option to Amari Cooper. Could there be better? Absolutely. But at the same time, I'm very proud of him. He's earned himself, I think, in my opinion, a contract extension with the Cleveland Browns, which I think that will be done this offseason. But again, they're going to have to still get a couple of wide receivers going on in the offseason just because I don't know if Amari Cooper is going to be here, but DPJ is having a fantastic year. And a lot of that is
whoa.
What's that?
Whoa. What do you mean you don't think Amari is going to be there? What's going on? What's happening? He's still under contract, right?
He's still under contract for 2 more seasons after this. The problem is I think the Cleveland Browns might make a play for DeAndre Hopkins. You've heard it here. You've heard it here first. I think it's crazy. I know a lot of people, don't really want to think about it too much because Kyler Murray just got his contract extension. So then why on earth would they trade?
Year, so
exactly.
And Deshaun's not like super young. So
yeah, exactly. So you gotta start making some moves offensively. That's why I, in my opinion, believe, hey, if there's a couple of guys that are gone, you might have Amari Cooper for 1 more season, but I don't believe that he's going to finish out his contract as a Cleveland Brown, unless Deshaun Watson says, hey, I want Amari Cooper here, because this is going to start turning into the Deshaun show, and owners Jimmy Haslam and D Haslam of the Cleveland Browns, owners of the Cleveland Browns, they know that they gave $280 million guaranteed. This man can have PTO for the next 4 seasons and still gets $280 million. They put everything in Deshaun Watson and said, hey, if you win us 1 Super Bowl, that contract is worth it. Yeah. And all of us know that. You win us 1, then $280 million is pennies, drops in the bucket compared to what would happen if we win a Super Bowl here in Cleveland. So they're saying, hey, this is your team. Deshaun, what do you need? Wide receivers? Do you need a left tackle? Do you need a guy? You want to go to fullback? You want to do air raid? What do you want us to do? There's even rumors right now, and I'm not that will make a dome. That Jimmy Haslam will build a dome for Cleveland, a retractable roof, sort of speak, just for Deshaun to say, hey, we're all in on you, bro. All in.
That's crazy.
So we'll see. If Deshaun wants Amari to stay, Amari stay.
All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Of course, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney is not having, his best year, but I think he had 9.5 sacks last year. So you can't just discount him. But is he even playing? Is Clowney playing this week?
He's questionable. He was out last Saturday. So he's questionable for Sunday, New Year's Day. We're not exactly sure if he's going to play or not. I do believe that he's another guy that might be back next year, depending on if Deshaun, I know that Deshaun may or may not affect the defensive side of the ball, but Jadeveon came back to Cleveland because he wanted to pay with Deshaun. So he may or may not be back next year. But this Sunday, as far as it goes, I think that he will be ready. I think that he will play, which is going to be important because you have to get pressure on Carson Wentz. I did have a question for you. I did want to know what your opinion were, because I didn't get able to get that earlier, about how you feel about Carson Wentz taking over for Tyler Heineke. On is that something that worries you, or is it something that you've been kind of confident in since seeing Carson Wentz early on in the season?
Yeah, we can do that at the end. No problem. I got no problem.
Yeah. Sweet, perfect.
Yeah.
So,
so defensive side of the ball, impact players that can be an impact to you all win. Who are some guys we need to look out for?
Gotta watch out for, obviously, Denzel the Warden Ward. He's going to be very important going over, covering Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, that wide receiving core of the Commanders. I don't know if, because it's the NFC versus AFC kind of thing, you don't pay attention to many people in a whole different conference.
Right.
But the Commanders, their wide receiver room, there's not some scrubs over there. You got Curtis Samuel, you got Jahan Dotson, and I think a lot of people just kind of sleep on it because it's a whole different conference. But then the week of the game, I was looking at it and I'm like, Terry McLaurin is a problem. Like Curtis Samuel, you guys, they all scored last game versus the 49ers. You got to watch out for this wide receiver core. And we have not been doing very well versus teams that have a strong, formidable, like a wide receiver room where you don't just have a number one wide receiver where you lock him up and then that's it. If you have all of your guys playing, it turns into a problem. And you spread the ball out, it turns into a huge problem. And I think that's what also kills our run defense as well, because you get guys, we're all paying attention and we're in a dime or a cover 3 or whatever. It's like you can't assign guys to each position and expect them to just perform very well. It's like our defensive line is not built like that. You can't just rush for the Cleveland Browns. You're going to have to get somebody else in the mix as well. So Denzel Ward is going to have to be a big impact guy. But the guy that I'm looking for is Greg Newsome. We have to see something from Greg Newsome. He also got an interception last game, which is great to see out of him just for confidence sake. But I want to see Greg Newsome finish out this year strong and say, I'm your cornerback number 2. We don't need to go look in the draft for another corner. I'm your guy. I'm next up, and I'll take the reins once Denzel Ward in the future is gone.
Would you rather teams run or pass the ball? Where is your strength? Is it in rush defense or pass defense?
Wow. I would. It's very easy. But it's very easy, but it's a very good question. I would prefer teams pass on our defense. And the reason being is because at least it gives Myles Garrett more time, because he's the best player on our defense. And you have to be able to put your best player in positions to make plays. And one of those is by passing the ball, get a 3-step, 5-step drop back from the quarterback, the opposing quarterback, and let Myles Garrett cook. Let him get some time. Let him get some rhythm throughout the game to make a play, understand the left tackle's tendencies, and kind of do different. Again, when you're in the trenches, it's a chess match. And I think that's what Myles does right now. Myles kind of is looking for ways to get back in the backfield. And when teams are running the ball, like you see Miami or the Chargers versus the Browns, or even last game with the Saints, it's hard to get pressure on the quarterback when you're never dropping back. You're just handing the ball off. So that's always a problem in and of itself. And I think I'm confident in our corners that if you're getting pressure on the quarterback, and I believe that our cornerbacks, Denzel Ward, your Greg Newsome's, your Martin Emerson's, they could be able to hold their own as well. So I'd much rather passing. When it comes to rushing, we are just a bad rush defense. And I try to stick up for them in many different scenarios, saying, it's the offense, it's who you're rushing. But if I have to be honest, they're just bad. They're just bad up front. So they keep losing their assignments. They keep losing their battles. Everybody's getting to the secondary. Linebackers are all hurt. We're on our third or fourth linebackers, and it's the NFL. Everybody gets injured, but it's like, there's only so much you can do. But in rush defense, Brian Robinson, Jonathan Williams, they might have to pick them up in fantasy. That's what I'll say. Make sure you start them.
Where's Myles Garrett in rush defense? What is his numbers? Is he a good edge setter?
He is, but at the same time, I think that the problem with Myles is that he's a very bendable guy, and he loves to put pressure on the outside. He likes to go out then come back in. And the problem with that is we don't have nose tackles, or we don't have those center guys in the interior to be able to create enough pressure. So what you're seeing is that left tackle of the opposition is pulling to the outside. That's leaving that gap between the left tackle and the left guard wide open, because the left guard is pushing whoever it is, whether it be Tommy Togiai, Perion Winfrey, or Alex Wright, or they're pushing him back like 2-3 yards. So and that opens up a hole on the left side. So I think Myles is trying to get a little better with his rush defense. And to be completely frank, people aren't running to that side. Right? They're not running to that side in general. They're not running towards Myles. They're going to run toward, the Taven Bryants, your Winoviches on the right side, and especially with Jadeveon Clowney's out, I'll run to the right side the whole day. So you're seeing a lot of people on that side of the ball just run away from Myles when you're running. A lot of teams, which I saw a lot of all 22s, they try to set up pass plays. Now, if you can imagine this, they try to set up pass plays that end up on the left hash, so they have enough room on the right side of the field to run that way.
They get away from Myles Garrett.
Exactly. So you set it up with a pass. You set it up exactly. So you set it up with a pass. You set up with a drag route, and then you just the next play on second and 8, second and 7, you just run the ball the opposite way. So, and Denzel Ward, honestly, if you line up Terry McLaurin on the right side, Denzel Ward doesn't like tackling. He's not a physical corner. Is he going to follow him? Is Denzel going to follow Terry? Yeah, most likely. I don't see in a game like this. I don't, because again, you don't know what kind of Carson Wentz you're going to get. You can get a Carson Wentz who throws 2 picks and it has a fumble snap in the backfield, or you can get a Carson Wentz who's 27 for 37, throwing for 400 yards and 3 TDs and 0 interceptions. You don't know which one you're going to get. So if you're getting a really good Carson Wentz, you got to have somebody who can, neutralize Terry in some aspects. So you're focusing on Curtis Samuel and focusing on the rookie Jahan Johnson. So, again, Denzel Ward, if you're running that way to the right side, to my point, Denzel Ward is not a great tackler in open field. So you're going to see a lot of people run that ball. I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders do that a lot, run the ball to the right.
All right, give me a hot take on offense and a hot take on defense.
Deshaun Watson has his first 2 touchdown game as a Cleveland Brown. I think that he will throw for 2 tutties. He would have had one last Saturday, but again, I hate playing that game because football is a game of inches to begin with. Mm-hmm. And if somebody would have made this play, if somebody would have made that play, I don't want to divert too much from my point, but again, that onside kick week 2 with Jets. If we would have recovered an onside kick, if Amari Cooper would have recovered that onside kick, we would have beat the Jets, and then our season would have looked different. To be honest with you, because when we lost to the Jets, I was like, yeah, our season is not washed, but our season is not good, because that was a must-win game. But again, I think Deshaun's going to go for 2 touchdowns. I think the weather is going to help out a lot. I think a lot of guys like David Njoku is going to feel a little bit looser. Deshaun Watson loves the tight ends. I believe that David Njoku is going to probably catch one, and Amari is going to catch the other. But a lot of our rookie wide receivers are showing up lately at the end of the year, trying to potentially make a push to be on the team next year. So I think Deshaun Watson is going to have his first 2 touchdown game. And then defensively, I think that I don't know why, but I can just see it in Greg Newsome's way. He's bouncing in practice and things like that. I think he's going to return one for a touchdown. I really do. And I'm not just saying that because it's if it were Tyler Heineke, I would say probably not. But I think there's going to be a tip ball. In some aspect, Greg Newsom's going to take one to the house. That's my hot take. Again, that's why it's hot. I mean, it might not happen, but it's certainly hot. But I do believe Greg Newsom will take one to the house off Carson Wentz.
The calendar says that summer is ending soon, but we're still outside. So when it's time to hop in your ride, make sure you book the best mobile detailing service in the DMV, Miles Detailing. Call 240-273-4018 or contact on Instagram at Miles Detailing to book your service today. Mention Red Zone in the Lab podcast for 10% off detail services only. Ride in style with Miles Detailing, that is.
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.
All right, yeah, good. I usually don't do my predictions until you put them out on Friday. Gotcha. I think it's going to be a 1.5 possession type game, score type game. Where are your thoughts towards the score?
Right now, I have a lot of people are talking, real spicy. They're having the Commanders win like 24-10. I do not see a regression in this team's overall play. And I've said this already on our podcast. I've said it already on a couple of other, platforms, but just because we're out of the playoff contention doesn't mean there's like 12 or 14 guys fighting for a roster spot right now. The GMs, the owners, the coaches, they're all going to be watching players, the way they look, the way they act, how they're talking on the bench. Are they engaged on the bench? Are they engaged in the game? Are they trying? Are they running their routes through and through? Are they playing to the whistle ends? And I think that you're going to see people get an opportunity that didn't get an opportunity before and are hungry to make the team. They're hungry, to change their lives eventually, to get an extension, to get a contract. So with that being said, I do believe, like you're saying, it will be closer. I do have the Browns edging this one out. I do have a 24-21 final. It might come down to a field goal. And Cade York potentially, not in the last seconds, but I mean, there might be a series stopped. There might be a field goal with 4 minutes left, and then the Commanders get the ball back, and then we just stop on a drive. But that's what I have as a 24-21 final. Browns winning this football game.
All right, good. So your question, I think Carson Wentz didn't lose his job because of performance, right? We know that.
Right, right.
We know he wasn't given the job when he was activated to the roster, which was the second Giants game. It was because Ron Rivera, like he said multiple weeks prior, it's all about a high hand. Like Heineke didn't stay the quarterback because of his performance, right? It was because we were winning football games. That's the reason why Taylor Heineke kept the job. And that's not the reason why Carson lost the job. So when we are 0-2-1, Ron made a comment after the second Giants game that he was thinking about going to Wentz at halftime, but he changed his mind. Taylor Heineke came out there, he kind of dialed some good stuff up, but when he made those comments, I knew that this hot hand thing was cooling off, right? And I projected all during last week that Carson Wentz was going to get in the game against the 49ers. I didn't expect for Taylor to play as good as he did, because I think that's probably the best half of football, that he played since all season. But I really do think Ron and Scott wanted to see what Carson can do in this offense. We are going to end up giving up 2 third-round picks. We spent $28 million this year, so they are looking to the future to see if this is a person that they want to bring back or not. And I do think the offense is better. Of course, Carson is the better player. The thing about the deep ball with Taylor Heineke is that when he throws his deep ball, it's always contested, right? Terry McLaurin is the number 1 leading contested catcher in the NFL since 2019 by a large margin. I don't like that stat because obviously it tells you something, right? Taylor Heineke has been a quarterback for most of that time. He's underthrown.
Yeah.
And also Jahan Dotson is, as he's shown that he's a great contested catch guy too. He's shown that all year. But I think with Carson in the games, it gives them a better opportunity for Yak and a better opportunity to push the ball down the field to have them run under it. So ultimately, it's all about the offensive line, right? So we have to get the running game going for either and the O-line to be kind of effective. But I don't think the offense changes. I don't think it changes. I think, Taylor took deep shots. We had deep shot opportunities. So it's not like we wasn't pushing the ball down the field, because I think he has more air yards than Carson Wentz last year and this year. So
that's actually very good information. I think that's an important part to go over, because a lot of people, again, like I said, a lot of Browns fans, a lot of Commanders fans, I'm not sure, but it's that going across the conference, right? These non-conference games that you want a little bit more information from both sides. But just, again, that's huge. That's huge. I will say, I will end on my point. You got to watch out. It's always next year with the Cleveland Browns, but I'm telling you this time, finally, I can actually say that next year might be the one that changes the course of history for the Cleveland Browns. So look out for us next year.
Well, I appreciate you for stopping through, Manny. I really appreciate you stopping through, bro. I guess Absolutely. You're not coming down, because I know you said you'll let me know if you was going to come down, but
yeah. So what? So I have to ask my wife, because I just realized that we're not doing anything for New Year's Day. So we're just doing something New Year's night, and she doesn't have to work. It's only 65. So I'm like, I can just go right down. I can just do a quick drive.
7-hour drive. Yep.
I'm actually in the Philly area, so it's only
so that's even closer.
An hour and 50, but 2 hours for me. So I'm like, God, FedEx Field is right around the way. So I'm gonna keep you updated. I'm gonna keep you updated. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that. All right, man. Thank you again, man. I thank all of you out there for listening. I thank you for watching. This is Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.
Thank you for listening to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Red Zone in the Lab. And you can download our podcast at Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. And please visit our website at redzoneinTheLab.com. Thank you.